Welcome everyone back to weekly weather updates, and in today's video I'm going to have the latest from the live radar, from the latest UKV, have a look at the precipitation and the temperature over the next 5 days, as we are going to see a huge northwest southeast split appearing by the end of this week, not only in precipitation but also in temperature. Across the southeast through Friday and Saturday we could even reach the low to mid 20s quite widely. 26 or even 27 degrees is possible as we draw on some of the warmth that sat across parts of Europe at the moment. Further northwards and westwards though, we remain in the cool Atlantic air and eventually turning quite cold with Arctic air filtering in. And along that dividing line that looks like it's going to set up across Wales, northern England and southern Scotland, we are looking at some really heavy rain. And not only is it looking pretty heavy, but it is looking relentless across a good couple of days through Friday, Saturday and Sunday before that rain eventually clears southwards and eastwards. And then we see all of that cold air moving in for those warmer areas, and we see a massive temperature swing. The UKV today has an 18 degree temperature swing from 3 p.m. on Saturday until 3 p.m. on Sunday for some areas across the southeast, from 26 degrees to 8 degrees. And that's all because cold Arctic air comes in behind that weather front, kind of undercuts the rain, combined with all the cloud and rain there. It really holds those temperatures down on Sunday. So we are going to see some really incredible highs and lows over the next 5 days, with a massive temperature swing coming before we settle in a cold and unsettled pattern into the start of next week, for there are some signs, especially from the longer range charts, that things will settle down. We have been talking about an amplified jet stream a lot, and that is what's causing this huge temperature swing and mixed conditions later on this week. But it looks like we're actually going to be setting up on the right side of the application as we head into the middle portion of next week, where instead of being sat under a trough, which was the worry, we're actually sat under higher pressure. It will keep it chilly, especially cold nights coming, but hopefully sunny and reasonably dry if some of the runs like the GFS are to be believed. There are some runs, though, that still keep unsettled conditions nearby, so still got those caveats, but got a lot to contend with the next 5 or 6 days before, hopefully, fingers crossed, things do settle down. So do remember, if you enjoy my videos, much do like and subscribe. Now, if you start on the live radar, we saw heavy rain moving through earlier this morning. Now cleared away, most of it. Lingering, though, some lighter rain, some drizzle and some thick cloud across many areas of England and Wales. Again, the live radar doesn't tell a full picture. There probably will be drizzle appearing, even some areas further eastwards where it's looking pretty dry. Further northwards, we're starting to enter into the drier slot, but you can see rain and showers are starting to push in for western Scotland as that westerly wind starts to push in. And over the next day or two, this is where we'll start to see that southeast, northwest split appearing, with that real heavy rain arriving very soon. Look at the temperatures this evening, around 6 p.m. You can see across some northern areas, it's actually not too bad this afternoon. Into the evening, temperatures high teens, and will continue to rise over the next couple of days, as I said, peaking around the mid-20s. And you can see where that warmth is coming from. France, Spain and Portugal are seeing summer-like conditions, and that is going to waft in for, at least for southern and eastern areas, for perhaps 2 or 3 days before it does get cleared away by that really significant cold front. Now, if you do look at the latest UKV, you can see all that rain through this morning, clearing away, leaving some drizzle and bits and bobs of cloud behind. As we head into Thursday, we start to see the northwest-southeast split appearing. Now, it's not too dominant yet, but starting to dry up, starting to clear in the southeast, cloudier with hefty showers breaking out in the north and west. As we head overnight Thursday, that rain continues, starts to turn a bit more beefy and persistent, and then we start to see some really heavy rain arriving into Friday and Saturday. Still very pleasant across the southeast, and you can see the rain really pepping up there during Saturday. Cold Arctic air drawing in behind this low pressure system. Still though, look at the east, a little bit of a drier, brighter spot there. 26 degrees is possible. But gradually through the weekend, all of that heavy thundery rain will clear southwards and eastwards, and during Sunday it's going to rain a lot in the southeast, finally going to get the fair share of that precipitation, but the temperatures will be abysmal as that clears and looks really cold there into Monday morning. Now, not on the same level as we'd see in the winter time, but potentially some isolated frosts in the north and temperatures down to the mid to low single digits even further southwards. So it's really chilly for early September. Now, if you see that on the upper air level, you can see warm air's moving in at the moment, and it's actually going to move in for quite a few into Thursday, but then it's become really exclusively for that southeast corner later on Thursday into Friday, where the temperatures could get up towards 17 or 18 degrees at 850 HPA. That's a 30 plus degree surface temperature during summer months. So it is really hot air, and you can see it becomes really confined to that southeast corner during the weekend, and then you can start to see that split appearing. Very cold air for the time of year to our northwest, very warm air to our southeast, over 20 degree up to a 25 degree temperature contrast across the British Isles. Eventually that warm air gets pushed away and we all go into the very cold Arctic air. Again, it's nothing spectacularly cold, it's kind of average air mass for January or February, but for this time of year it is very chilly indeed. Now, if you look at those max temperatures this afternoon, temperatures weren't great, but in some spots up towards 19 or 20, so not too bad, while we avoided the cloud and rain. Into Thursday, temperatures starting to creep up in the southeast, 22, 23, and as we head into Friday, starting to properly rise, 23 or even 24, but the cold air is starting to move in from the northwest. And look at Saturday, temperatures across the east, 26, across Scotland, maybe only 5 or 6 degrees, remarkable temperature contrast there, and that very warm air gets pushed away. And just remember some of those areas to the east of London, East Anglia, 25, 26 degrees. Look what happens into Sunday. Frost for Scotland, high teens for the southeast overnight. And as that rain moves in, it's going to bring that cold air with it. And look across that southeast portion, 8 or 9 degrees in some spots, where only 24 hours prior it was 25 or 26. A remarkable temperature drop. Now, maybe it won't play out exactly like this. Maybe it won't quite be that 18 degree temperature drop. Maybe only be 14 or 15 degree temperature drop. But regardless, it is going to be a massive change there between Saturday and Sunday as that cold air sweeps in. And then overnight into Monday, we've got clear skies, potentially isolated frosts for some northern areas, possibly across the Republic of Ireland, and many areas into the mid to high single digits, which, as I said, is really cold for the middle portion of September. So some remarkable shifts coming over the next few days. As I've warned over the past week or two, expect some big extremes when we see these big amplifications in the jet stream, and that is exactly what we're seeing over the coming days. Hopefully, though, as we'll see now from a longer range, we could end up on the positive side of those extremes, with potentially high pressure blocking sat right over the top of us. Now, if you look at the latest GFS, this run is just coming out as I speak, so we can't look at the full run yet, but we get out to 300 hours, so getting out towards that extended time frame. So these are the lows pushing in at the moment, and eventually see that northwest-southeast split appearing, but eventually those northerly winds win out, and it turns really chilly with northeasterly winds into the start of next week. Those northeasterly winds remain all the way through the next week. Eventually, though, the high pressure topples, and it sits right over the top of us. And for the rest of this run, it doesn't really move. The only change is actually it starts to pull in, instead of a northeasterly, it slowly pushes eastwards and starts to pull in a bit of a southerly. So as I said, the GFS today on the side of dry and maybe warm, especially longer term. And it doesn't look too bad at all. So pretty decent conditions here, I must say, from the GFS. But by no means guaranteed, definitely a chance that more of a northeasterly could remain, and you can see the sort of cold air pushing in into Sunday and Monday. If we look at those potential equivalent temperatures, really quite chilly for the time of year, before eventually turning a little bit warmer maybe later on, the one with those yellows starting to return. Now, if you look at the GM, it's not in complete agreement. If we look, you can see the northwest-southeast splits. Those northerly winds push in, looking really cold there Sunday, Monday. The high-pressure topples, and it tries to hold on with a bit of an easterly flow, but it loses out. And by day 10, we're in the westerly flow. And if we look at the jet stream, still amplification, but it's not quite as amplified, and it looks like we might end up eventually in the trough that is sat out across the North Atlantic in the GFS. If we go back to that GFS run, you could see the big amplification here, but we're sat under the higher pressure on the warmer side of the jet. So we're in a fortunate situation, whereas on the GM, we're more potentially on the cooler side, more unsettled side of the jet stream. Now, if you check out the ECMWF to finish off the video before we look at the ensembles, you can see similar. The Atlantic systems continue to push in, northwest, southeast split, and again, northerly winds arriving through the weekend. High pressure topples tries to dominate and does dominate, but unlike the GFS, it's more of an easterly flow, so it could keep it cooler, and after 360 hours we could see further northerly winds trying to push in. So yes, similar to the GFS, not like the GM at all, but it is probably a cooler pattern than what that GFS run was showing. Now finally, if we look at the latest ensembles, very warm upper air temperatures over the next couple of days. I said peaking 16-17 degrees, then dropping substantially by around the 15 to 20 degree mark, down towards freezing at 850 HPA. Could be even cooler than that, and turns more unsettled. Then later on, it turns perhaps a little bit drier, but this is where I think we start to see conflicting signals between the operational runs, but remains pretty chilly. So I think longer term, cold, but hopefully dry, I think is the message at the moment. But again, we'll wait and see whether the Atlantic does fully break through, as that will really decide how much cold air we see and how dry will it be. I think one of the big things that we're going to see change is the dew points from 15 degrees down towards 4 or 5. So it's going to be pretty warm and humid over the next couple of days, but turning much colder and drier in that air. Some of the coldest air we've probably seen in 6 months or so, but released since sort of April, May time, maybe even longer. So 4 or 5 months, maybe 6, going back to March. So really chilly air pushing in. And if finally we look at the latest ECMWF ensembles, very similar, warm at the moment, much cooler, and then precipitation picking up. Precipitation remains fairly strong longer term, so not too many runs. I've got that dominant high pattern, so perhaps it's just a bit of a coincidence, both the GFS and the ECMWF were showing it today, the operational runs that is, but you can see it is similar in terms of the temperatures. A good 5+ degrees below average, at least initially, and then trending back closer to average there longer term. So I'll have to wait and see exactly how this does play out, but some huge temperature and precipitation swings to come over the coming days with hugely conflicting signals. Some in the southeast will be in t-shirt and shorts on Saturday. In the north and west will be raincoats, potentially hat and gloves, given how cool it could be. So keep you updated over the next couple of days. Risk of some warnings for that rain in the north and west. This does look persistent, and of course we'll look at the temperature shift over the weekend as that cold front sweeps through in more detail in the coming days. So thanks for watching, hope you enjoyed, subscribe if you're new, and I'll see you again for another video soon.